afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Green and Growin 26. My name is Eric Jones with Turfette Radio. Some of you may know me as the turf teacher. My wife is here, Jennifer Jones, the Turfette, and together we own Turfette Radio. We are the Green Industry Couple, our podcast, and I just want to give a shout out to Turfette Radio. Guys, we welcome you to stop by the booth. We welcome you to download our app, Turfette Radio. It is the only 24/7 live radio station dedicated to the green industry, where we broadcast from events like this throughout the year. Equip Expo, MANTS, Green and Growin, and you can go to our website and you'll see at all the trade shows that we'll be at. And it is Jennifer and I's pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker.
Hello, everybody. Getting your bellies full? Y'all good? Are you awake? Can you say hello back? No? I like a lively crowd. I'm trying to get you all ready for Dr. Knuth. But before we do that, it's an honor to kick off today's keynote session and to welcome all of you to today's event. Before we dive into our program, I'd like to take a moment to express our gratitude to a few key contributors. A big thank you to the University of Mount Olive for coordinating the stage decor. I want to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of all of our volunteers. This event would not be possible without the support of the students and the faculty from Pitt Community College, Central Piedmont Community College, and University of Mount Olive. So give them a hand for part of their volunteering here today. We appreciate all of you for your commitment to making Green and Growin 26 a success. So now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker. Dr. Melinda Knuth's research priorities are on business management and consumer behavior research. Dr. Knuth has evaluated trade flows of horticulture products and estimated the economic impact of the North Carolina and the United States green industries. She currently is an assistant professor in horticultural science at North Carolina State University. Dr. Knuth received the 2025-26 Goodnight Early Career Faculty Award at North Carolina State University. So now, I want all of you guys to give her a warm Green and Growin welcome. Please welcome her to the stage. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck with everything.
All right. Okie dokie. Hello, everyone. How are we today? It's so nice to see all of you. All right. So we're going to get started. Oh, let's see. Okay. So I wanted to start off today by talking about how we are as an industry and what we're up to. To give a little introduction to it, I wanted to introduce the team who did the research. It wasn't only myself. We also had two other economists on the project, Rajan Palajuli, as well as Daniel Tregeagle, as well as an army of undergrad students who helped us conduct this research today. I also wanted to start out by saying a very, very warm thank you. Without your support as members, as well as NCNLA and other organizations in the green industry, this was not able to be done. So if you received a survey from me in the mail and you're like, what is this? And you still filled it out and sent it back, thank you so much. You are part of the reason that we are able to do this project and to get all the information to then turn it over back to you. With this project, and why I keep saying project, is this was a industry effort. This wasn't just, oh, hey, me as Melinda Knuth is asking, here's some funding, here you go. This was industry driven, and it was driven by members at Farm Bureau, as well as NCNLA, the Green Industry Council, the Turfgrass Commission, Council, as well as the Urban Forestry Council. This was a group effort to get this done. And it was funded by the General Assembly. So all of this that we're going to talk about today was funded by tax dollars. So from you all and others in North Carolina for you. So I wanted to just say thank you very much for all of that before we get started. So who is the green industry? When we're talking about the green industry, I think it's always helpful to go over who is this and who is involved. And a lot of times, synonym for it is the environmental horticulture industry, all of the ornamentals that are within. So this includes wholesale nursery and greenhouse, as well as the Christmas tree production, turf grass management, sod producers, irrigation, landscape design, composting, urban forestry, parks and airports, botanical gardens and public parks, construction and maintenance firms, as well as all of the wholesale and retail distribution chains, including our independent garden retail centers. So we are a huge industry. We do a lot. We're very encompassing, and we have a lot of our fingers everywhere. And so this is who we are, as well as all of our trade suppliers are incorporated. So this is who the green industry is and who's encompassed within this study. And I also wanted to take a moment to also talk about this is the impact of our industry and the importance of our industry is much deeper than a lot of what a lot of people think. And it really starts with the concept of plant blindness. This is a physiological response that sometimes we talk about when in behavioral economics as well as in psychology. And it's what happens when people are in an area and they ignore their plants around them. And this is something that's been talked about more and more over the past couple of years when much of our society is urbanizing. And the reason that we call it plant blindness is because we realize with the lack of plants that they're not there. But when they're there, we kind of ignore them. And I think that's what a lot of people think about in horticulture, is they're like, I take for granted all the plants around us. And so we, generally, our industry is more in the backdrop of society. But it is deeper than that. Plants do so much for us as a society and as individuals. And so not only environmental benefits that plants provide from the carbon sequestration, as well as purifying the air around us, the health benefits that they provide to us. There's a well-known phenomenon where if there is more tree shade on a street and in a community, the better heart health that community has. There's a direct relationship there, as well as a decrease in the cortisol that's in your saliva when you are around plants. There's also the economic benefits. We mostly think about the fact that, we in the industry are making money off of plants. But the perception of plants, not only in communities, but individually on properties, can increase a home's perceived value by up to $10,000. We matter a lot in society, and regardless of the plant blindness effect that many people disregard our industry for, we are important and we do contribute a lot. So I'm going to step off my soapbox for a moment. I'm very passionate about our industry, and I talk a lot about it on a national scale and how important it is. So the last time that this survey was done, so assessing the impact and the size of the green industry in North Carolina, was in 2005, which was a while ago. And so this is something that was also commissioned by the industry. There was an economist at the time. They said, hey, would you be willing to do this? So if you have ever seen this handout before, this was the original report that was done. Now, this has not been done up to when we started working on this in 2025. So there was over 20 years since the last time that we've assessed the size and scope of our industry. So I wanted to start first with the headliners. So what are the big important numbers that we're going to talk about here today? And so the first headliner that I wanted to talk about out of the report is our direct contribution. So this was $9.5 billion with a B. That is massive. So what is the direct economic output? Well, output is the encompassment of total sales, as well as a net inventory change. And the way I like to think about this is really, if you have a pond and drop something in the pond, it's that first ripple in the chain. So it's that first point at which the activity occurs. And that's what we can think about as direct economic output, is this is directly what the industry is contributing. Now there's ripples that further push out than that, but this is the first one and the one that you guys are directly involved with. Other components that are involved in direct economic output include jobs and wages. That's a really big one that comes out of there as well. If you look at our total output as a state, we are $15.8 billion. Woo, that's also pretty big. So what is total output? So direct output is that first ripple there. Well, total output encompasses your direct, your indirect, and your induced effects. Now you might be like, oh God, Melinda, now what? So all of this together is not just that initial ripple in the pond, but it's all of the ripples that happen extending out of that. So not only what you as an industry contribute in your jobs, in your wages, in your direct sales, but then we're also talking about things such as what other industries do you touch, and what are their sales, and what are their employment. And then we're also talking about things such as sales tax and investment and consumption, so at the end consumer level as well. If you want to look at this on a visual metric, because I'm a visual person myself, this is what it would look like. So all of those arrows are all the components of total output. So what's happening within the firm, as well as going to households, so your end consumer. And what's happening in the rest of the world, what's happening with governmental agencies, such as with taxes. And so all of this is incorporated together for that total output effect, which is that $15 billion. Another way to look at that is to look at the direct, induced, or direct, indirect, and induced. And I'm just going to pop this up really quick just to re-emphasize that rippling effect that happens, where we're first talking about what happens in orange at your business and then further moves out from there, so that you can see what is all incorporated into that number. Basically, you can think of it as everything's incorporated into that number. If you compare that $15 billion as compared to other states, because we're always curious, okay, what are we doing in relation to other states? Not only did Daniel and I do an assessment, economic impact assessment of North Carolina, we did of the entire US as well. And some of the states that we're similar in size to are like Illinois, Michigan, New Jersey, and Ohio. These are all about a similar size scope as what we do in North Carolina for our total output. And you might be like, well, why Illinois? Because I didn't think that at first, but then, oh yeah, ball horticulture's there, so that's why that happens. The larger states than us, this is not a surprise, but other states that are larger than us in terms of total output are states like California and Florida, New York and Texas. New York does about $5 billion more than we do, but the other states are pretty far out there in terms of theirs. For example, California does $68 billion in total output, so they're doing a lot over there. So if you want to think about, okay, in terms of ranking, because this also helps in terms of scope, we rank about 9th in total output as compared to other states. So we're doing pretty good. 9th out of 50 is pretty solid in terms of how much we contribute to the US economy. Now there's another number that we like to talk about, and this one is a little bit harder to describe, so bear with me a moment as we go through this. And this is total value added. And value added is described as gross state product or your total output, so that 15 billion, minus the materials and services that are used. Okay, so that 15 billion minus that. And for us in North Carolina, this is about 9.1 billion. So what this tells us is really what is the value of our labor as well as our capital used in producing all of our products in North Carolina. So that's about the same size and scope as what we are doing in direct output, which means that we're using things pretty effectively here in North Carolina, which is great. If you want to look at that again visually, this is what it looks like. So on a visual scale, you can see value added minus those inputs equals that output. So these are our big numbers for our state. So we're contributing pretty significantly in terms of what our output, our value added is in the state. Now, I love to look at tables, so I'm going to force you all to look at tables for a minute. And let's talk about this on a segment basis. So not only as a general industry, all of those from the third slide, all of those all together, let's talk about them in per segment. So we have about 7 segments here in which we commonly segment out our industry. And these are by the tax code that you subscribe to. And I say subscribe because you tell the government this is what category I'm within. And there's roughly 7 that encompass all of our industry together. And so for our employment here, we have about 65,000 people employed within our industry collectively. So 65,000. When you break that down per segment, landscape services holds the most number of employees at about 44,000 people. So they're doing a lot with a lot of people, and it's very labor intensive, of course. We then have lawn and garden equipment and supply retailers. So these are people who are selling lawn mowers as well as weed eaters and equipment of that nature. And that's about 7,000. Our nursery and floriculture production, which we like to call our growers, is mostly how we call them. And they're at about 4,700. Our farm and garden machinery and equipment wholesalers are at about 3,800. Our flower, nursery stock, and florist supply merchant wholesalers, so this would be like florist wholesalers is the easiest way to talk about them. They're about 1,500. Florists are about 1,500. Landscape architecture services are at 13. And lawn and garden equipment manufacturing, so making the equipment for landscape, is about 700 people. So you can see landscape holds the most people in terms of employment. This also directly translates to labor income. So this is in the millions. So when I say 1,800, that's actually 1.8 billion, if you want to think about it that way as well. But it still holds approximately true. There is exceptions to this, of course. So the retailers generally have a higher labor income, and so their labor income is slightly higher than the other categories. If we look at our value added by segment, so still in the same order here, you can see that landscape services kind of rules the roost in terms of value added for our total contribution. So they're at $2.8 billion, and then it roughly follows through after that. So the second largest would be the lawn and garden equipment and supplies retailers, and then our nursery and floriculture production is about 300 million in value added. When you look at the industry output, so this is again, so value added is total output minus those materials and services. Industry output is all of it together without subtracting anything. And you can see here that landscape services contributes about $5 billion into our industry. Those lawn and garden equipment retailers, about $1 billion. Our nursery and floriculture production is about $600 million. The The farm and garden manufacturing wholesalers is about 1 million, and then our floral wholesalers and our florists contribute a little bit under that, and then manufacturing is about 500 million. So that's where we're at in terms of the categories across the board. So what does this mean over time? So we have these, we have each of these segments, and we also have the total contribution. But how do we compare to years past? And so let's take a step back in time for a moment and compare these to the 2005 numbers, because this tells us about actual health in our industry. So we are contributing these large dollar values to the overall economy, but are we still trending upwards? And the answer to that is yes, we're doing great. So if you compare, so direct and total, so you remember direct is that first ripple in the pool, and total is all the ripples in the pool. If you, direct is blue and total is orange. If you compare across 5-year increments approximately, so 2005, 2010, 15, 2020, and then 2023 when we repeated, you can see that we are doing more, substantially more than we did in 2005. If you look at our direct, in 2005 we were doing about 6 billion in total direct, or excuse me, not total direct, that was an oxymoron, in direct. And then in 2023, we're again doing about 9 billion. So we grew over a 20-year period in $3 billion in direct output, which is great. That is fantastic. I'm very excited about it. I hope you are. We had that little dip in 2010, and I hope that intuitively makes a little bit of sense because we had the 2008 market crash. How our industry functions is usually if there's some sort of downturn or negative effect on the economy, we see the effect 2 or 3 years later. And so we didn't see the effect directly in 2008. We saw it in 2010, and 2011 is when we saw the downturn after the 2008 crash. Now you're gonna notice there was no blip really with COVID, and that's because we had some great years. With all of what was going on and people were forced to stay home, they were doing lots of landscaping, they were doing lots of home improvement, they were doing lots of hobbies, and that was very, very beneficial to our industry. And so that's why we see we're continually going up. So overall, we are doing great. If you look at our value added over time, you can see that the value added had a little blip there in 2020. That is, of course, because material costs increased. And so that's why value added shows and has that little bump there in 2020. But if you compare us to 2005, you can see we were right around 3 billion in terms of our value added, and then we moved up to 9 billion. So compared to our total output minus our services and materials, we had a pretty large growth spurt there over the past 20 years. Now let's talk about labor. Now this, I feel, as an economist, I feel this is the most interesting part of this whole report. And that is, if you look at the bars, the blue bars, really stay consistent over time. So 2005, 2010, 2015, 2020, 2023, those bars aren't changing much. Total employment, it's doing a little bit of movement, but overall, not so much. And when we first saw this number, we were like, oh my God, what happened? But from thinking about it and rechecking our numbers and speaking with industry people, the conclusion here is that we are doing more output with the same number of people. Same number. If you compare what we did in 2005, we had 60,000 employees. We now have about 68,000 employees. So we are doing 3 billion more in output with the same number of people, which shows that the industry is very innovative, even with our labor challenges, which I think is pretty cool. If you look at our total contribution here, so I just wanted to reiterate, our direct is about 65, and then our total is about 99, total meaning all the ripples in the pool. And if you look at our employment, and this is reported from the survey that you guys did, so again, thank you for doing it. So this helped us understand these more. On average, about 80% of employees in our industry are permanent, about 12% are temporary, and about 8% are some sort of H-2A, H-2B situation. And so most of our employment are people who are consistent and who are kept on the business. All right, so let's look at imports and exports. Because we are not singular in what we do in our state. We do some exporting to other states, and we do some exporting externally, and same thing with imports. So first, let's talk about exporting. If you look at our exports, we do about $1.3 billion in exports domestically, and this means to other states. So we're doing a lot of commerce with other states. And most of this is in landscape, which I found very interesting. So landscape services holds about 46% of that domestic. So we're doing lots of work with South Carolina and Virginia, as well as other states. What was interesting is that the farm and garden machinery wholesalers, they contributed the largest in terms of foreign exports. So doing lots of exporting for the machinery that's not built, but selling that machinery to entities external to the United States. When we look at imports, we have a little bit less, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is just how our economy works for the green industry in North Carolina. We do about 500 million imports. Most of this is going to be our nursery and floriculture producers who are importing, and a lot of that is happening with foreign imports. This intuitively makes a lot of sense. A lot of our cuttings and a lot of our seed is imported in, and so that captures most of what's going on there. And taxes, our favorite word. All right, so all facetious, of course. So if we look at our tax contribution, we are contributing about $1.2 billion in direct tax and about $2 billion in total tax contributions. This is not necessarily happening on the county level or the sub-county level. A lot of that is happening at the state and the federal level. All this means is that our total contribution to the government and to the economy is happening with our tax contribution, and we are contributing significantly. All right, and then the last topic that I wanted to focus on for this presentation was talking a little bit about perceptions and attitudes in the industry. And this is an area I'm super interested in researching, which is why I added these to the survey. So thank you again for doing that. One of the things that I wanted to touch on first was age of business, because I found this very interesting. Is that a lot of the businesses in our industry are multi-generational, like having a 50, 60-year-old business or older. It's not a singular person. This is a multi-generational business. And that speaks a lot to, again, the health of the industry. If we have a lot of new businesses, so young is how you might want to think about that. If we have a lot of these young businesses, that means a lot of the older businesses in our industry are going out of business. But we actually have a lot of older businesses that have been around multi-generational. Again, really speaking to the health and vigor of the industry. The oldest businesses appear to be Christmas tree growers, which I thought was super interesting. But across the board, there was a pretty good health in terms of age of business. When we compare across that factors that impact business, and these are reported from people within the green industry, we asked them to rank them on a scale of 1 to 4. 1 being, this is not an issue, or 4, this is a big thing that really impacts our business. And we saw across the board that most people didn't feel anything was incredibly taxing on them, but some stood out. Those are the threes that you see. So for example, when we look here, we can see that market demand as well as hiring employees, those continue to be issues that people are citing as major factors that are affecting business. Another one I found that on the very end there, weather continually was one. That's not surprising to see. We were asking in 2024, and what happened? Hurricane Helene. And so I wasn't terribly surprised to see that, but weather is a big factor that businesses reported. We also asked about factors that impact price. So again, 1, if they felt that it wasn't a problem at all. 4, as in yes, a really big problem. And you can see cost of production as well as competitive pricing. And in this one, labor didn't come through as much as in other categories, but this was, or transition planning was another one that really showed out here. This is helpful to understand in terms of where's the hurt? Where is everybody hurting in the industry? And this also helps us as researchers know where can we potentially help you? Like, okay, well, what are the problems that you're experiencing? How can we help you potentially fix these? And then lastly, we also asked about factors that impact the geographic range of market area. The big ones here were transportation and production. And so this is helpful to know in terms of how can we expand, typically geographic area. If we expand that, we can expand our target markets, we can then expand our sales, we can then expand our total output. And so understanding how this affects people can be very helpful to know as well. Okay, so that's what I got for you today. So that was the report that we did. We are planning to do a little bit more into reporting on individual segments here, but overall the conclusions that we have are the industry is healthy and it's doing great. For all the uncertainty that we have had and we've been discussing over the past basically 5-6 years now, we're still doing great. And overall, it appears that the industry as a whole is able to function and contribute to the economy effectively. We're also doing meaningful work for the state and for the nation. Numbers like this are really helpful to share, again, at the General Assembly as well as with other industries, because we contribute to both the state and the nation at a significant level. And then, of course, I wanted to reshare those numbers. So our total output is 9 billion. I did it again. Oh my gosh. Our direct economic output is 9 billion. Our total output is 15, and our value added is 9 billion. So not small numbers there. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful conference, and I'll be hanging around if anyone has questions for me. So thank you.